All right, well, welcome to the top 10 takeaways from the 2 to 10 Conference 2019. I'm so glad you guys could join us today. I see you're logged in from across the country, different time zones. We've got a mix of people that attended 2 to 10, but also we have a large proportion of people that have that were not at 2 to 10 this year. So what we're going to do today is go through a segment on just some of the highlights of 2 to 10. And with us today, I want to welcome Louie Lago, who is president of SalonBiz. SalonBiz has been an anchor sponsor from the very beginning of 2 to 10, and to a large degree is one of the reasons that 2 to 10 is now going to celebrate our 10th anniversary next year. So, Louie, good morning. How are you today?
I'm good, Tom. Thank you for having me on the call, and I really appreciate all the work that you do for this event and for everything that you do with the salon industry. So thank you, Tom.
My pleasure, Louie. Thanks much. And we're going to get to hear from Louie in a little bit here. So, all right. Now, with 2 to 10, a couple things that I want to kind of go through in terms of protocol, and that is that we will do some Q&A at the end. We'll have an opportunity for you to send questions. You all should be on mute at this point. This is being recorded, so we will send out a link with the recording of this. We'll also send a very short handout within 48 hours of the webinar today, so you've got some talking points. It won't be the full presentation, but it'll be the highlights of what we covered today. So, all right. So, top 10 takeaways. So let's get going here. So let me give you an overview of what we'll cover today. First of all, one takeaway is just to understand what 2 to 10 is. We'll go into a data deep dive, which is something we covered this year at 2 to 10. We'll summarize the roundtables and what a roundtable is, what the format is. We'll spend a little bit of time on what we call relentless recruitment. We'll spend some time going through an innovation activity and prize that we had at 2 to 10 this year. And then we'll also summarize a couple of really great segments that really speak to the emerging leaders and owners in our generation. To speak to the next generation. A little bit about finance and strategy that was covered at 2 to 10. Louie's going to do a great segment on claiming your client experience. And then finally, we're going to summarize the segment that Erin Kuhn did, president of Qnity. She's going to do, or I'm going to summarize what she covered in terms of making an impact. We will move relatively quickly today. 2 to 10 has a lot of moving parts to it. It's a very robust 2 days, and we're really going to hit the high points. So a little bit about 2 to 10. 2 to 10 this year had a theme of claim your space. And the space that 2 to 10 is in as it relates to the salon industry is, first of all, 2 to 10 stands for salons that have between 2 and 10 locations. This is a group that is about 12 times larger than an average salon company in the U.S. The average sales for 2 to 10 members, 8 million, has 4.3 locations and a head count of about 111. You must be multi-location to qualify. Only 5% of salons in the U.S. are multi-location. We consider the 2 to 10 brands to be the sweet spot in the beauty industry. There's just such great brands. I'll show you who they are in a moment here. Altogether, the combined sales volume for this group is approximately $350 million. 2 to 10 is brand neutral. It's unaffiliated with the manufacturer. In fact, we've never had any manufacturer sponsors. We have a format that very much mimics what we look at in terms of public TV and public radio. We have very few sponsors, only 5. This is invitation only. It's an intimate setting. We had about 130 attendees. The DNA of the conference is really about peers and peer sharing, and a lot of that comes out in our moderated roundtables. The data and benchmarks have been the source of 2 to 10 from the very beginning. It's very much a networking and peer-driven experience. And it's a no frills approach. There's no swag. It's a gritty opportunity for leaders from across various brands. We're forgetting about what brand they're affiliated with in terms of manufacturer and coming together to share. We have a very high percentage of people involved in the conference. These are just a few of the many people that contributed. It's a very high ratio of attendees to contributors. These are the companies this year. You can view it briefly on the screen here. These are great brands from across the US and Canada, all market leaders in their region. And here's a group photo. We are in Scottsdale this year. And to understand a little bit more about 2 to 10 is we do have a code of conduct. It's founded on trust and open sharing, very active participation. If you're at 2 to 10, plan on participating. Confidentiality is at the core of 2 to 10, as well as respect and professionalism. And it's also an environment where solicitation is something that is prohibited, other than sponsors doing a normal discussion about their companies and their offerings. Qnity not only presents 2 to 10, it's also an anchor sponsor. SalonBiz is also an anchor sponsor, gold sponsor. They are the only continuous sponsor since day one other than Qnity. And we have a lot of gratitude for SalonBiz, and SalonBiz also has demonstrated to be the leader in terms of multi-location software. We also had other sponsors such as Green Circle, Web Openings, Professional Beauty Industry, and Beauty Backbone. Now, a little bit about the data, and then we'll go through the data that we covered in 2 to 10. So we've been doing data since 2011. 2 to 10 started out with collections of profit and loss statements for 5 years. Then we also did 6 years of surveys where all members had to complete a survey about business practices. Between these two forms of collecting information, we have a very, very rich database of information that is brand neutral. It also is, in many cases, comes directly from profit and loss statements. We also have 3 years of data that came from point of sale sharing through a special app that was built by Zizor, custom for 2 to 10. We've used 5 different outside analysts, all of them objective and not 2 to 10 members. We also had a partnership with UMass Boston. We had 14 MBA students working on data for a full semester. Now, in terms of findings from the data in prior years, we were able to pull things based upon multi-location to come up with various different benchmarks. And these benchmarks are very much driven by vendors and not the manufacturer. Some of the things that have come out in prior years, I'll share with you because we had several years of data, and I feel pretty confident, not pretty confident, I feel very confident based upon what the analysts turned into us. We found that an average 2 to 10 salon has profitability of 5% after we normalize for owner's compensation. And an average 2 to 10 salon has EBITDA, which is earnings before taxes, depreciation, and amortization of 7.5%. We found that the average 2 to 10 salon has service payroll of 45.5%, which excludes payroll taxes, and that's net of any service or product charge. We also found that 2 to 10 brands are very regionally orientated. I can count on 2 hands in the history of 2 to 10 the number of 2 to 10 companies that actually cross state lines. We also found in terms of our research that 92% of these 2 to 10 companies are family businesses. Now this year, we took a slightly different angle. And there was a lot of things that came together to have us focus on one single metric this year, and that's revenue per square foot. 2 to 10 was really the first organization to provide data in that area in the salon industry. This goes back about 8 years. We also were able to determine there was a very high correlation between high revenue per square foot and profitability. That came from a study from the University of Massachusetts Boston campus and the MBAs, as well as a faculty member. So we know this is a very important metric, and we've been promoting this metric for several years. We've always had it part of the conference, but this year we went deeper into it. We went deeper into it really as a result of several different things coming together. And a very important piece to bring up right now is this is where we did an extended collaboration with SalonBiz. What we realized is we wanted to be able to give people a little bit more of a benchmark so they can see where they stand as it relates to revenue per square foot. So we built a special calculator that is going to be available on the SalonBiz website. It should be available in approximately 2 weeks, but we're going to show it to you today. All right, so now before we get to this, let's share with you some of the things that came out of the conference as it related to revenue per square foot. We had 2 champions with us at 2 to 10. Champions meaning very top performers came directly from 2 to 10 data, and one was from the Van Michael salons in Atlanta, and we had Van Counsel there to do a complete segment about his business model. Went through location by location, what the revenue per square foot was, and the extraordinary thing about the Van Michael salons is the consistency they have in all their locations, and how as an enterprise they average over 1,000 per square foot. Now there's several other brands or several other companies that have 1,000 per square foot, but maybe it's only at 1 location, or maybe they have 2 out of the 3 at 1,000 per square foot. But to have an average of 1,000 per square foot for all locations, especially at the size of these locations, is extraordinary. And Van did a great segment there, took plenty of questions from the audience in terms of driving revenue per square foot, and it was great. Then Heath Smith from Ruiz down in Austin, Texas, holds the record in terms of what we have seen in terms of submitted for a 2 to 10 company at revenue per square foot, and it was over 1,600 per foot. That's a verified number. And he spent some time with me on stage, talked about some of the things that he does, and then also he did a separate roundtable, a segment, and went through some of his best practices. And then also Carly Ellison from the Van Michael salons also did a separate segment on drilling down from 1,000 per square foot. So certainly one of the key takeaways was the importance of this metric. There's a lot of conversation around it, and I'm going to now get to this beautiful calculator that was built. And the great thing is this is going to be available to those of you on this call. What you should do is check the SalonBiz website. Let's give it 2 weeks, and let me walk you through what this looks like. And it's a very simple calculator, but it has some depth to it. So first of all, in order to use this calculator, right now it's an Excel sheet, and this will be available as a downloadable tool with SalonBiz. And all you really need to do is to enter information in the yellow shaded boxes, your business name, your location, and then you just need to enter annual sales. This is service and retail combined. For this example, for an illustrative purpose, we put in $1.8 million. Then you just need to enter your total square footage for the location, and that includes everything at retail, back room. If there's a separate office and it's off-site, you would exclude it. And then what automatically calculates is your revenue per square foot. In this example, it's $514. But then it gets to the unique piece, and the piece that really provides the greatest value here, and that is a ranking. Your ranking, based upon the information you put, will automatically populate, and you'll see where you stand in quartiles. And now let me reveal the rest of this sheet here. We hired an analyst by the name of Barry Matthews. Barry Matthews has been a 2 to 10 analyst in the past. He's a former CPA. He was CFO of the Jean Merez salons in Seattle. He has multiple years being our specialized analyst for 2 to 10, and we hired him to go back into the data from previous years to really see what it means to be a top performer in this area and what it means to be, or what the average is. So he went through 3 years of data, went through some relatively complicated formulas to normalize the data to bring it to today's rates. Then what he did is he was able to create this table where we see the different ranges. So you see in this example of $514, that would put someone in the second quartile. Now the database here is made up of, I believe it's 489. It's just shy of 500 different locations that were included in this. Now you can't find this data anywhere else. It's not just one specific brand. It's multiple years. Barry looked at it from multiple angles, so we're really excited to share this, and we're also excited that SalonBiz agreed to help sponsor coming up with this special calculator. Now, before we leave the data deep dive, we also had a lively debate between Terry McKee from Nuovo in Florida and Carrie Davis from Guy LaRoute in San Diego. And they debated the merits of going deep versus wide as it relates to expansion. Which side they were going to debate on was by a coin flip. And it was a lively discussion about when you would just go deep in your existing location, increasing your productivity, increasing hours, probably reconfiguring your space a little bit, just different things to maximize your performance at an individual location. And the other side of the debate was the alternative, which is rather than expansion by going deep, it's expansion by opening up a second location. The third takeaway as it relates to 2 to 10, and really a key part of the format here, is the roundtables. And half of the conference is really peer sharing. There's a visual of a roundtable, looks like it's actually a square. And the format of this is really based upon what we call the 5 functions, which is a Qnity methodology, which breaks your business down between marketing, education, human capital, operations, and finance. And what we did is we had all the participants were able to go into a roundtable room based upon these topics. Each room had an experienced moderator or facilitator, and all of the people that were the moderators have at least 4 years experience following a format. The format's intended to make sure that the pace is high, that people are allowed to ask and answer questions, and we bring into the meeting what we call conversation starters. And a conversation starter is an attendee that was invited to start the conversation in a roundtable, and they start the conversation based upon some business practice that is relevant, timely, and they're passionate about. The conversation starter has about 10 minutes to start the conversation with a share. And after the share, when the share includes no PowerPoints or no handouts, it's a verbal share. The moderator then goes around the room and asks the group to, or facilitates questions of the conversation starter. Now, the topics in the marketing room this year were rebranding and when to look at a name change. We also had a segment on getting 400 new clients in 1 month. That was by Jessica Solar at Salon Red. We had a segment on telling your story with digital marketing by a guest, Andy Eaton. And then services to go, including bridal services and other ones, was by Nick Provenzano of Zano Salons in Chicago. Now, we could do about a 3-hour webinar that would just go into each of, or all the different roundtable segments. I'm going to highlight one in a little bit, and it actually is coming from the education/human capital realm on recruitment. So I'm going to spend a few minutes on that in a moment. We actually had 3 different conversation starters in that. It's a hot topic, and I've got some takeaways I'll share with you on that. There was a segment on business and creativity by Jean Morez. Enhancing the employee experience by Susanna Bolich of JCon in Florida. And then we also had Mark Pardo and Scott and Mary Randolph from Randolph's in Michigan do segments on your training costs and condensing training. I'm going to spend a little bit of time later on finance and strategy. I'm going to highlight some segments here. Joe Canale from JCon in Florida did a segment on profit and culture through compensation. Keith Smith did a segment on growth based upon revenue per foot. Nick Secord from Florida is a subject matter expert. We invited him in and did an outstanding segment on tax, some takeaways on that. Then we had Jennifer Oak from Lunatic Fringe in Utah do a segment on franchising. And then finally, in the operations roundtable, we had Carly from the Van Michael salons go through how they drill down to get to 1,000 per square foot. We had Megan Jasper from the Gadabout salons in Arizona do something on staff retention, 4 dimensions, a fresh way to look at staff retention. We had Beth and Sue from Studio B in Colorado do a segment on combating retail decline. And then we had Ginger Boutwell from Paris Parker do a segment on call center updates. Now, as far as relentless recruitment, 4th takeaway here, we'll spend a little bit more time on this one. We really had a lot of people looking for information and best practices as it related to staff recruitment. And so we had Coral and Taylor Please from Cutting Loose in Florida do a segment on social hour. I'll get to what that means in a moment. We had Tony Gordon from Gordon's in the Chicago area do something called relentless recruitment, and we borrowed that phrase to highlight this segment. And then we had Kate from ILOF do a great segment on a fresh way to look at recruiting. So some of the takeaways on this, and I'm gonna sort of blend all 3 of these into the things that came out. So certainly frequency of going to the schools was a high point. Many 2 to 10 companies go to the schools. Many of you go to the schools. That's not necessarily a new practice. I think the new practice was really more about the frequency as well as the depth and just different ways to get more involved with the schools. Again, borrowing Tony's term, to be more relentless. The Cutting Loose team shared this great thing they have called social hour, where they actually invite students and instructors to come to the salon. And then they do demos, they do blowouts. They have an experience for students and instructors to really experience what it's like to come to the business. And it's been a very successful program for them. This was recently profiled in Salon Today article if you wanted to learn a little bit more about it. They were actually on the cover. I believe it was 2 or 3 issues ago. Then some other things that came out of this segment was the importance of alumni and collecting from your staff where they went, where they went to school, and making sure that they stay active as an alumni. And then also being on different school alumni associations, Facebook pages, so it's really getting your team much more involved as alumni from the school they went to. They also stressed the importance of doing mini interviews. Kate from ILOF had some really great ideas in terms of how to find out the dreams of stylists, so we're listening to what's important to them. And that includes using the Qnity 9 grid. And she's also using a Qnity 9 grid to really have students really articulate what they're looking for in a salon. So it's a great way to get students more involved in career pathing and get them to speak, find out what their dreams are. There was also several other ideas that came in that segment, and I think I'll leave it at that just in the interest of time. Now, the fifth takeaway was relay with innovation. And we invited a gentleman by the name of Luke Carlson, who is the CEO of a 5-location small chain of fitness studios in the Twin Cities. And over the years, we've invited other businesses or other industries to be part of 2 to 10 from an innovation standpoint. We've had hotels, restaurants, vet clinic, and dental clinic in the past. And Luke just did a great segment. He spent time talking about what they refer to as their signature 6, which is just 6 different things that they do when they train their staff in terms of customer service. And Luke also, as a byproduct of this, back to our focus on revenue per square foot, his business, the Discover Strength Studios, is tops in the U.S. in the boutique category of fitness studios for revenue per foot. Now, we used Luke's segment as a kickoff into a surprise activity for the members. So we did an innovation activity. We split the whole room into 8 different groups, and they were randomly assembled, so people worked with people that they probably didn't know, or maybe there were some old friends from other salons. And so they all gathered into groups, and then what we did is we assigned each group an industry. And the industry is many of the ones I just mentioned: fitness, dental clinic, hotels, restaurants, vet clinic, grocery store, and we had a couple other ones. And each team was randomly assigned an industry. And then what they had to do is they had to come up with a direct tie from this industry back to the beauty industry. It needed to be executable, and it needed to be scalable. They used a Qnity 9 grid to collect their ideas, and then each group did a pitch. And then at the very end, we all voted, and we decided what the winning team, and the winning team was the team that presented ideas based upon hotel experience. Now, the exciting thing for this group, this was a surprise, courtesy of our partners at SalonBiz. Members of the winning team all got a ticket to the 2020 Serious Business Conference. So it was very exciting. Next year, we will continue the innovation activity. We'll have a new twist to it. We'll have a new prize. And it was a really fun, exciting way for people to innovate, not by what they hear from other people, but innovate based upon being in action. These are a couple of 9 grids that were prepared, that were the basis for the presentations, and so it was a great segment. Takeaway number 6 was emerging leaders. At 2 to 10, we've always wanted to be relevant, and we've always wanted to give a voice to the emerging leaders. And we can define emerging leaders a lot of different ways. Our definition of emerging leaders is a very simple and easy way to determine whether someone's eligible or not. We just have an age cutoff. The emerging leader group is 35 years and under, and they're attendees at the conference. And during the conference, they have some time to build community amongst them. In many cases, these emerging leaders have never met each other before, and they have an opportunity to build community with each other. And we have had a competition. 2019 will be the 4th annual competition. Over the last couple of years, we've picked topics. We had one that was related to culture 2 years ago. Last year, we did one on marketing. And this year, we announced the competition is going to be about relentless recruitment. We had last year's winners of the competition, including John Rizzo and Susanna Bolage, do their segment, their winning segment. That was featured in Salon Today magazine, and it really related to hair extensions, a fresh way to market and build business around it. They both did a great job. For 2019, Garrison Neal and Amberlynn Maxwell, Garrison Neal from Paris Parker and Amberlynn from iLoft, will be mentors, and Susanna Bolich and John Rizzo will be the captains. And watch for an article later this summer about a competition with the emerging leaders. And we did something really big and different at 2 to 10 this year on the Sunday before. We had a segment called Emerging Owner Summit. And this was a workshop within the 2 to 10 conference. It was a separate registration. It was the day before. And what it was, it's an opportunity for future owners in the salon industry, and not just multi-location, to gather for education, community, and inspiration. We had a great a panel with Carrie Davis, Joe Canal, and Amanda Hare on just different things they wish they knew as they became a salon owner. This workshop, I also had the assistance of Jody Ohama from Red Bloom in Canada and Heath Smith from Ruiz. We went through various topics between entrepreneurship versus entrepreneurship. Topic of money and emotion and why it all changes when your money's on the line. We also went through a lot of the technical things that go into being a partner, different types of organizational entities like a corporation and an LLC, different contracts that are needed, what type of conversations to have with coworkers. So again, these are really for people that realize that the grass is green where you water it. And these are people that are looking for an opportunity to become a partner within their existing business. This workshop exceeded my expectations from an attendance standpoint and a success standpoint. We had over 50 people attending, and we invited participants on this to the Sunday afternoon Emerging Owners workshop. We invited them to join us on the Monday of 2 to 10. The 8th takeaway had to do with finance and strategy. And we spent some time on tax. I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about tax and a little bit of time talking about franchise. But before we do that, as it relates to 2 to 10 and finance, some of the things that we really go through is financial practices that really come from our curriculum, the Qnity curriculum on financial management. Program we have called Getting Behind the Numbers, as well as Planning for Profits. And then also how we teach financial management as part of 5 functions in our consulting work. And different things, the importance, for example, of having a name to every number on the profit and loss statement. Making sure that you don't spend too much time looking back, but you have a forward focus and you're always projecting future revenues. The importance of looking at your P&L drivers week in and week out, not waiting till month end, and other such things like that. Now, as it relates to tax, I'm going to be a little bit careful in my sharing here because we did have an expert there by the name of Nick Secor, who we work with very closely out of Florida. And he's come highly recommended to us. If you'd like Nick's name or referral, send us an email. And we had Nick do a segment on tax. And he, short and sweet, he saved people a lot of money. Gave people very tangible ideas as it relates to taxation, for example, home office deductions, something related with an administrative home office, a deduction that was available in prior years related with color usage. Spent time about pros and cons of amending a tax return. And it was a segment full of meat, and one that I'm a little bit cautious to share because this is an area where people need to get their own tax advice. They need to check with their own tax accountant. But in the future, if this is a webinar that you'd like us to do, send us an email. We see if we can get Nick together and we can do a segment just on tax. We also had the CEO of Lunatic Fringe spend time talking about franchising. They have some company-owned salons, and then they have some franchise salons. They're based out of Utah. Jenna was very generous with her time and her sharing. We spent time talking about the pros and cons of licensing, pros and cons of franchising and how that's compared to licensing. I'm also spending a fair amount of time in this space right now. I have a client that I'm working with very actively on a franchising relationship. For those of you that would just like a very simple takeaway from this and just something to keep in mind about franchising is it's a little bit like an ESOP in that franchising requires very high volume and a very high and aggressive expansion plan because of the startup and the compliance costs. Now that's a mouthful, and thank goodness I'm now going to have some voice relief. Thank goodness for you here too. We're going to have some voice relief. And I'm going to invite Louie Lago from SalonBiz to jump in here and spend a little bit of time. So Louie, let's have you jump in and I'll advance the slides for you, okay?
All right. Thank you, Tom, and thanks everyone for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us today. And really, I just want to just talk about just some of the stuff that, technology companies that are out there supporting salons, really what you need to be looking for and what we can help at SalonBiz around some of that stuff. And, SalonBiz is our HA solution, our enterprise solution was really designed for multi-locations as a point of sale solution for multi-location. And being able that you have a shared database, so all of your clients, your gift cards, your services, and your retail all lives in one database, and it can be shared amongst all your different locations. Being really able to have consumer apps, we see a lot of stuff around salons wanting to create consumer apps, so it's really key to have those consumer apps really be a part of your point of sale system, to where they can allow your customers to book appointments, to purchase retail, also to see what's going on via some of your social media links. Is one of the really good ways of connecting with your customers. Also, a lot of salons that we see out there, they're really, really growing their business and also offsetting some of their employee costs, have really adopted online booking for a huge percentage of their booked appointments, and also being able to have the gift card sales and utilizing gift card sales amongst different locations within a geographical region if that salon group desires. With the stylist apps out there, they're now just basically the stylist. Back in the day, we were telling our stylists to take cards and hand out cards, and hopefully that those people will come and book with you. Now with the stylist tools that are out there, stylists can book in the moment and get their books a lot fuller, a lot faster. We've seen a lot of our new talent stylists, a lot of our millennials that love this ability to do that and be able to get themselves busy right away, and also be able to review some of their stats and goals. One of the big things that we see in the industry is a lot of stuff around mobile payments. And we have a big, the buzzword is going deskless. We've had some, and I'll speak a little bit about that with one of our success stories with one of our customers, but we really see that as a really big initiative of a lot of salon owners to try to reduce some of the footprint of their front desk and be able to be more mobile. So you'll start seeing a lot of different tools that are coming out there for really that, to keep going in that direction around the deskless movement. Also areas around integrated payments, I think is a huge area around just obviously your credit card processing side of it, and being able to have all of your business be able to be essentially bundled into one processing unit, or merchant ID we call it, for your mobile apps, for your mobile apps, your consumer apps, your online booking, and then some of the newer technologies around EMV with Apple Pay, et cetera. So based on the regulations around a lot of the payment side, you want to make sure that you guys are doing everything you can to be compliant on the payment side. Using AI, we see a lot of stuff now with AI stuff, and that we're working on some of the AI stuff, and some of our partners with Presence AI, just around being able to the texting to booking, where some of the people have adopted this have been able to really reduce a lot of their employee costs. We really see a lot of movement around AI. We're also going to be doing a lot of stuff around AI for just sheer marketing purposes around consumer behaviors. And then the final thing is just talking about just some of the new stuff that we just launched around some of our automated marketing campaigns. And for those customers that are on SalonBiz or want to have more information, please send us a note in the chat in this chat room, and we can follow back up with you. please reach out to us and we'll get you guys more information around that. So Tom, I'll go ahead and have you advance the next slide. Yep. And just one of the keys that we were talking about earlier, just around the desk list. And you know, Stacy, when I met her, she was had a single location or 2 locations, and now she's in the last 2 years has grown to 4 locations, and all of her locations now are going with this desk lifts movement. You know, they have one computer that can, you know, that's kind of towards the back that they can handle, you know, returns or some of the other transactions that they may need to do. But 90% of her transactions are done via an iPad for a lot of her consumer checkout, which has increased just the flow of her front desk and really just made it a lot more efficient. Any other questions or anything like that, please feel free to reach back out to us at SalonBiz. And thank you, Tom, for having us be a part of 2 to 10 and Qnity. And we love the continued support of both of the events. So thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Louie. Great job. We appreciate it. Denise from SalonBiz really did a great segment at 2 to 10, and she always does. And the thing I love about SalonBiz is they provide information, they provide education, and it's really not about a pitch. It's really about how they can better support the multi-location model as well as the salon business at large. Now, Aaron Kuhn, president of Qnity, did a segment on making an impact. And this was a little bit about some of the work that we're doing at Qnity, including an organization that we're sponsoring called Lead Her, which is about helping mothers and daughters, or mothers build greater confidence in their daughters starting at a very young age. It's also some of the work that we've done overseas. And so it's a little bit about an update from Qnity. I think that's for a future conversation with you, but we really love the opportunity to be in front of this group. And like Louie, we're very thankful for we have a platform like 2 to 10. And what we do is we really want to make sure that the 2 to 10 platform is really one that's about peer sharing and networking and great data. So now I'm going to open it up to Q&A right now. And you should have buttons where you could submit a question. So feel free to do so at this point. And I'll watch for some questions. Looks like we've got one already here. Okay. Actually, that was a test. All right. So if you have a question, go ahead on your portal there. There should be a place where you could submit a question, type it out, and I'll do my best to answer it. Okay. This is where we wait. See if there's any questions. All right. Now, where you can find this, by the way, it's on the bottom panel is where you can ask. So feel free to hit the Q&A tab on the bottom part of your panel. Ask a question if you have one. Give it a few more minutes. One question that came up is, do you have to be multi-location to be in 2 to 10? And the answer to that is yes. You do need to have at least 2 locations. There's a slight exception to this year in the sense that the Sunday workshop we had for emerging owners, you did not have to have multi-locations. And by attending the Sunday special workshop, you had the ability to be part of just the first morning of 2 to 10. All right, another question is, all right, what happens if you are not multi-location? Do we help people become multi-location? And yes, we will help our clients really navigate the process of becoming multi-location, to look at it from a variety of different lenses. Our lens is primarily through the 5 different functions. What does that look like financially, operationally, from a marketing standpoint, staff standpoint, and education? Let's see what else here. Yeah, and that, just to be clear, that's from Qnity Advisory Services. All right. how can we purchase more of those awesome 9-grid notebooks that were handed out? Okay. All right. So we have a new product, and it is a 9-grid notebook by popular request. And they're not actually up on our store. They should be up on our store within the next 10 days. The 2 to 10 group was amongst the first to get the 9-grid notebook. So on our store is where we'll have the 9-grid notebooks. Let's see what other questions might come up, or feel free to email us. And you could email us at info. You actually can go onto our website and you could watch for it at the store, but a better thing is just to do info@qnityinc.com. That's info@qnityinc.com. If you want us to notify you when we have them up at the store, we'd be happy to do that. All right. Question: is there a revenue amount that you still have to be multi-location to 2 to 10? Great question. We used to have a minimum revenue to be part of 2 to 10. It used to be $3 million. We have waived that. You do not have to have a minimum of $3 million to be part of 2 to 10 anymore. We're always looking for new members, and so thanks for that question. What's the biggest tip you have for someone becoming a multi-location business? Well, the stakes are very high in adding that second location. So my first, do I have biggest tip? Well, my biggest tip is to ask for help. And I think that help is going to come from a variety of different sources. It can come from peers, also can come from advisors. And so that'd be one tip. I guess the other tip that I would say about becoming multi-location is to look at it through the lens of our 5 functions. It's a really good way to organize your thinking if you're looking to add in a second location. Look at it from the lens of what it means financially, which is, projections in terms of startup costs, what the future P&L would look like, et cetera. Look at it from the standpoint of marketing, how your marketing is going to change, what marketing needs you have. Look at it from an operational standpoint, and education, and then also human capital. I would say probably biggest tip, now that I'm thinking through this, because the question, this is unplugged and I'm getting questions being posed here, is to be as profitable and productive as you possibly can at your existing location, and to get your existing location so busy with such a full staff that you have no choice to go to second location. What is the date for the 2020 2 to 10, and how can you sign up? We are looking at, 2 to 10 is always in either the second half of April or the first half of May. And we are looking at a couple dates right now. We should have the final date within the next 10 days. Most likely it's going to be the middle of April or the middle of May, as opposed to the very end of April, very beginning of May. But please hold off a little bit before you do anything, and so we'll send the dates out. See what other questions come up here. Any other questions? I want to make sure I didn't miss any. Any other questions? All right. I'm also looking at the clock here, and I want to be respectful of everybody's time. So group, any other questions? Well, here's one that we have for you. Are there any other webinars you'd like to see from us? If so, go ahead, type it in the Q&A. Here's your opportunity to tell us what you want to hear from next, or if there's a segment of this that you want us to go deeper into, send it in the Q&A. We're all ears. What topics? Any topics you'd like to see more of? Okay. All right. Any other topics? Okay, we have someone that would love to see a marketing webinar and a recruiting webinar. All right, thank you. That's noted. Very good. Excellent. Thank you, Vanessa. We have someone who wants financial literacy 101. Okay, well, we are going to be doing some financial related classes coming up here. Any other topics, guys? All right. We're going to do a countdown now so we can set you free and on to the rest of your day. So we'll give it about 10 more seconds for any questions or topics you'd like to see in the future. All right. Counting down, I got 5 more seconds. Last call. All right. Well, thank you very much for being part of this today. This will be recorded. We will send something out so you'll be able to access the recording. Thanks so much for taking the time to be with us today. And thank you so much to Louie Lago, taking time out of his busy schedule also, and for SalonBiz. And then also, I've got to thank everybody that's involved in 2 to 10 because it's an absolute collaboration. And it's a joy to work with so many different conversation starters. It's a joy to work with these great companies. And I'm so thrilled. And I ask myself, who would have thought that the 2 to 10 would last as long as it has, and to be thriving and to be going into the next year. So, which will be our 10th year. So that's all we have for you guys today. This will be the official end of the call. Thanks very much. And until we meet again.